Hello, and welcome to Borrow My Belief podcast, where we inspire you to live from your heart and follow your dreams and authenticity. And today I've got a great guest called Matt, and I'm looking forward to talking to him and sharing with you about the entrepreneurial journey. I've had the pleasure of witnessing this particular guest for the last few years and watching his growth and the twists and turns of his journey. And I know that you'll be inspired by what he has to say. So, welcome, Matt.
Thank you very much, Joanne. Yeah, nice to connect again.
I can see you've got an animal in the corner
Oh,
there.
yes, my rabbit.
I
Yeah,
had a cat here as well.
he
So
doesn't often move, but he's obviously decided to right now
decided to
to
join us. So,
attract
Matt,
attention.
we're part of the same entrepreneurial group, and although we've not communicated often, I've watched your journey and I've watched you grow and I've watched some of your challenges. I wonder if you can describe to our viewers, just to start off with, what your business is and a little bit about yourself, and then we can take it from there.
So my business is growing. It started primarily as a clothing brand, which is called Start Living for Today. And my main focus is selling hoodies. So I'm a big fan of the hoodie. It's not just an item of clothing for me. It is a bit of a comfort blanket. I like very much hood up, world off, head down. Um, it it enables me to go out with confidence and kind of put my hood up, and it does kind of create a shield and also, I guess, a bit of an element of antisocialness, which sometimes, in especially in my past with struggles with depression, it's what I wanted, to be kind of like, leave me alone. I'm here, I'm out, but leave me alone. So I wanted to change, but it's also can be a negative. It can also create a negative image. So the hoodies, go into the shopping center with a hood up, people automatically assume you're going to rob them, and things like that. When actually it could just be the fact that what actually this person wants is not to draw attention, and actually is the opposite. So my goal was to try to kind of create comfort, obviously. Hence the reason why the hoodie I, you know, chose to sort of print on is very specific. It took a lot of time and effort to find it and to find the manufacturer. And because it's thick, it's heavy, it's comfortable. This version hasn't got it, but my other version's got the thumb holes in the cuffs as well. The pocket's nice and big on the kangaroo pouch, and inside the kangaroo pouch, you've got a smaller pocket for holding keys or your mobile phone and things like that. So there was little things that it had to have. So it was the comfort side of things, but also I wanted to add an element of value to the hoodie and to the person wearing it. So hence why their name came from, Start Living for Today, and some of my taglines that I print on the back, like this storm will pass, never give up. You're not alone, never give up. You're awesome, never give up. You are enough is another one, so never give up. Those kind of things. It also means that then that person can put a hoodie on, can put their hood up, can put their head down, create a element of tunnel vision as well, which also helps focusing in on the moment, focusing in what's just in front of you, goes back to the message of Start Living for Today. But it also then gives that person an element of value because they're potentially sharing a message that somebody else could see, especially the this storm will pass one and the never give up. Seeing that, I've always had this vision that one day I will create a all singing and dancing video ad, which includes a story effectively of two sides of the track kind of thing, two people on two sides of the track. And ultimately, the person that goes wearing the hoodie potentially saves somebody's life because they see that message. Um,
Wow.
and I get emotional about it every time.
Mm.
Because it is a vision of mine. I'd love to know that, because it can change in a minute, in a second, and that's all it takes in both directions of somebody considering ending their life. It can be changed in a minute, and sometimes that's all we need is that message. So yeah, that's where the idea of the hoodie came from. I've just rebranded. So as you can see behind me, I've added orange, and I've got my own font made. Before, everything was just white and blocky. It was just white text in a block type of font. Very basic. The reasons behind that was for ease of printing, ease for um, the production side of it, which I all do myself still. Um, and I've now incorporated orange and blue into my brand. The orange representing living, sunlight, energy, brightness, life, things like that, and the blue representing the bold, bravery, sturdiness, stability side of it. And I've also added now, I'm adding prints to the wrists, to the forearms. So those messages are actually on your forearm, like a watch, to remind yourself, like this one says, you're not alone, never give up. And I'm in the process of taking a new approach to marketing as well, because although my avatar is primarily men, it's still something I toy with. Like, we're told to niche down, we're told to focus on a specific market, and men's mental health kind of makes sense. I'm a man. I am very passionate about that, and I feel the impact men can have on the world is huge in both directions, whether it's good or bad. So I think a lot of it can stem from a man's mental health. A man can impact, and I'm not just saying, I know it's, you know, some people will say, well, women's mental health, and yes, it does. It's like the whole Black Lives Matter thing, All Lives Matter thing. I get it. And that's one of the reasons why I toy with the idea, because yes, it is something, but I do want to support and help everybody, and I do think it's just as important. And my biggest problem at the moment with my marketing is my customers are all women, even though I try my best to target men.
Mm.
So I'm in the process of rejigging my marketing, and actually targeting women. But I'm targeting women on the approach to help because the reason why I'm attracting women is because they are the mums, the wives, the sisters, girlfriends of the men.
Yeah.
And they relate to it. They're the ones that want to shout and scream this message out because they care so deeply about the man in their life. The man is too deep in his own darkness to even care and consider about thinking that wearing a hoodie is going to make remotely any difference to his life in any shape or form. And I get it. So I'm now in the process of looking at targeting women in the attempt of it being a present for the man in your life,
Mm.
which also acts as a conversation starter. Because we do tend to believe, us men, we do tend to believe that our brave face is absolutely bulletproof and nobody can see through it, and nobody has any idea how low and how much we're struggling, especially our partners. We are convinced that they don't know anything. Um, and the reality is, for any men listening, they do know.
Yeah. Do you know, Matt, I've done this podcast with a good friend who runs men's circles, and I've just written a note to put you in contact with each other. Maybe going to a man's circle online and listening to some men and putting your idea out there. So I'll give you that at the end of the podcast.
Yeah.
And recently I've become very curious about men, and I've opened myself up to listening to men, and I'm being really, really surprised by some of the conversations I've been having and the vulnerability. It's actually been really beautiful. And being a woman on my own journey that's been surrounded by mental health issues all my life, it's really surprised me, some of the conversations that I've had. So first of all, I just want to say your journey is what I consider your own unique journey, but typical of an entrepreneur. We find something that we've struggled with and we turn it into something to serve others. And that's exactly what you've done through a product. For me, my mum had schizophrenia, so I was brought up around mental health issues all my life, and it doesn't really scare me. And then I became a coach and a mentor. I've had 2 years of psychotherapy myself, had lots of counseling, and I've had great experiences and terrible experiences on a personal journey within those forums. And personally, I managed to come off antidepressants, managed to get my life on track, and I don't even suffer with an inkling of depression anymore. And so I too feel passionate about this. And I've had people close to me who felt suicidal and had those thoughts myself, even though I would have never done something. So I'm joining you in this kind of passion for this subject. And I think that anything that anyone can do, even just to raise awareness and show people that it's okay to talk about these things, it's okay to be vulnerable. When I was on antidepressants, once I started to talk to friends, I discovered that something like 98% of my friends were on the same frigging pill as me. And I was recently talking to one of my clients, and she said if she forgets them and she goes somewhere, she just asks a friend and they've always got one. And I just think it's really good that you're bringing this to the light so we can talk about it.
That was my point, and I'll be honest, you do also, I also do get a lot of negative feedback in this space. People look at it as like you're leveraging somebody's um like unfortunate feelings or whatever you want to call it, their mental health to earn money and to gain, you know, uh to profit from it type of thing. Um and the thing is well, the way I look at it is but you wear clothes, don't you?
Mm,
You know, you're a human being who wears clothes. Am I right or wrong? You know, if you own a hoodie, if you've bought a hoodie at some point, you've bought a hoodie. And if you're not a hoodie type of person and you don't own a hoodie, then that's also cool. That's fine. But either way, you do wear clothes. So why not wear something that's got a bit of added value and a message to it? It makes no sense to me. At least and yes, my hoodies, especially the premium range ones, they're I would say mid-priced in comparison
mm,
to hoodies. They're not the highest, but they're mid. They're higher than most. And the thing is I look at it and go, well, that's because of the way I'm doing it at the moment. Unfortunately, I'm one person. As you may be able to see all the walls of my office. Apart from this one, which is only an extra meter away from the length of my arm, and this is where it all happens. The marketing, the selling, and the printing, it all happens here. So that's why they are a little bit more expensive. But people are willing to spend ridiculous amounts of money on a named brand. I'm not very well. I'm not clued up with all the big brands, but look at like Versace, Fred Perry, things like that. Fred Perry's an image of a horse, somebody playing polo. What does that mean? What is that? Why are you willing to spend 60, 70, 80, 100, 120 quid on a polo shirt? Because it's Fred Perry. That I'm not discrediting it. I'm not saying it's not a good brand or anything, but it doesn't have a message with any deep meaning.
mm.
And if it does, do you as the wearer know what it is? Have you paid any attention to the background of that brand? Or have you just bought it because you've seen David Beckham wearing it or whatever? So you're willing to spend that on that, but you're going to criticize somebody for selling something that's promoting a positive message. So um, yeah, I don't know where I went on that, why I went on that tangent,
I
but
think,
I guess it's a question.
do you know what it reminded me of? The entrepreneurial journey. It's very, the entrepreneurial journey really kind of screams out in what you're saying, because as entrepreneurs, we are navigating startup businesses, not having backup behind us of various different things, taking risks to the point where some of us end up without a home and all those different things. I mean, it doesn't have to be like that. We're taught in the group that we're in that you can run this alongside your job and you can just take your time and don't jump out of your job, take your time. And but I mean, I didn't do that. I'm just not that type of person. I'm an all-in person, but you are really describing, in essence, the entrepreneurial journey. And um, a lot of people, there's that saying, isn't there, that people see the overnight success, but they don't see the 10 years that went before that overnight success. And they don't see what goes on behind the scenes. So, for example, every client I take on, I donate 10% to charity of that. Of whatever they paid me. They only choose to look a lot of, well, I'm generalizing, but people choose to look at one side of it, not all sides of it.
They
Uh,
really do. And there's two elements I wanted to talk about. I've got a specific hoodie, which whenever it's bought, £10 of that hoodie goes to suicide prevention. Yeah, well, they were suicide prevention Bristol, which was my hometown. I now live in Cornwall, but that was where I was born and bred. And it's a charity of volunteers that walk around the streets at night looking for to help vulnerable people. Absolute incredible charity. They've now become Suicide Prevention UK. Um, I've got wristbands that if a wristband is bought, I think that's £7, £8. Um, all the profits of that goes to the charity. Now the thing is I don't market that much because it I don't get anything financially from it. I have tried to get the charity involved, but they've not really listened, and I think that's because I get it. They're not possibly not allowed to. I don't know because if they support one brand and they got to support others, etc., etc. So I get it, but yes, I do that also. But people overlook that. And then back to the other point I wanted to make was the entrepreneurial journey side of things. I I my worst place after starting this journey was it was the best part of £40,000 in debt. Um, I say in debt, I had a loan. Okay, so I was in a reasonable job which paid well, paid okay. So it was a loan that I could afford, but it after investing in what it was called in the past, the top level, the mastermind experience. After doing that, plus I had an old loan that carried on over. I was best part of 40 grand in debt, if you want to call it that. And I had an overdraft of 2,500. And for about 3 or 4 months, I was going down to the last 20 or £30 in my overdraft. Um, and I was going through that cycle. It wasn't horrific because I was getting paid every month. So I'd get paid, that would disappear as soon as it went in, and then I would rinse and repeat type of thing. Um, and people will focus in on that story and going, "Well, I'm not doing that. I'm
mm,
not going to. I'm not going to become an entrepreneur. I'm not going to start a business. Blah blah blah. I'm not going to go through that. I didn't think I was going to go through that. That was not my plan. It was not my intention. It was definitely not my motivation. But once you get your claws into something, and the thing that changed for me was going through the branding process.
mm,
It was creating my brand, figuring out what I wanted to do. Once you create and you get focused in on that bigger thing, bigger than yourself, you're willing to put yourself in the deepest, darkest of shit piles of shit. Um,
agreed.
to you go in to do it because it's like I'm all in. Um, I then sold my house. Okay, I was on the house and market. My life on paper was actually pretty awesome. Okay, and that was And that's what ruined me mentally. It's because on paper my life was meant to be quite good. I had a reasonably good job. I was very high up in the company. My feet were well and truly under the table. I couldn't do anything wrong. Um, well, I still got the wife. I wasn't saying that as past tense, but I had the wife, had the house, cars, motorbikes, holidays, etc., etc. But so on paper, it was supposedly really good. For me to pursue this path and to commit to this entrepreneurial path full on, I binned all of that. I sold my house. I'm now living in this basement flat. It's rented. I don't own it. It couldn't be any more perfect in reality once you look at it. But if you ask myself, I don't know, 5, 10 years ago, you're going to be renting a basement flat. I'll be like, oh my God, my life is going to fall apart. I'm not looking forward to that. That would have been my perception. It's not that way in any shape or form. It's absolutely the best thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
Um, I sold my house in Bristol at peak market, so cleared all my debt and had a very healthy lump left in the bank, which enabled me to pursue this full time. Now I share that story, and again, the average person is only going to hear the thing, well, I'm not doing that. I'm not
Mm.
going to sell my house. I'm not going to sacrifice all of that. It's not worth it. All right, don't do it then. It's obviously not worth it for you. I mean, fast forward 5 years' time after those moments, ask yourself, is it worth it? Ask myself now, is it damn right? It was worth it. So much better off.
I
I
hear
wouldn't change it for the world.
I hear you, Matt, because my story is not so dissimilar to yours in that, and I've written about this in my book. I had the most perfect life on paper as well, and I'm so glad I had that life. I'm so glad I experienced it, had a great marriage, brought up my kids, and then it expired. And something inside me, something in my soul wanted something different, and I found myself in what I name a money trap, scared to change that. But eventually I did because I couldn't. That's when I had my 2 years worth of psychotherapy. I couldn't live that way anymore. I wasn't being true to myself. It wasn't that I hadn't been true for myself for the 25 years, because when I look back now, I can see I had. It just expired and that cycle expired. And I too took those great leaps, and I too don't own a home anymore. And here's what I see the difference in me is there was a lack of fulfillment in me at that moment in time for about 3 to 5 years. And now I am so fulfilled. And on paper, every day I go to bed at night and I do a reflection of the day, which I teach my clients. And every day I look at every day and I've had fulfillment in that day. I've lived joyously, no matter what emotions have come up for me. If I've had sadness, if I've had anger, I'm still okay. I don't have any depression. I don't have any anxiety. I genuinely enjoy every day of my life now. And I think that's we're taught through consumerism and commercialism that we're to live a certain way, and that's what success looks like. And the other thing I wanted to mention as well is the entrepreneurial journey really is a self-expression, and it's really freaking scary because it's the best self-development program I've ever done. And my whole business is around self-development and manifestation. And along with relationships and entrepreneurships are the two things that are going to hit you at the core for you to face yourself, but the best growth ever. And once you do hit on with entrepreneurship, once you do hit on that, how can I be of service? Like you said, you're willing to do whatever it takes to get your message out there and be of service. It's different to just selling something just because you want money, because that doesn't really work, does it? It's more about what is your why, what message are you bringing out to the world, how are you helping people? One of the best books I've read on that actually is The Go Giver. Have you read it?
I've not heard that one.
It's called The Go Giver. It's about building a business from service. It's yeah, it's I'm like you. I wouldn't have it any other way.
one thing I wanted to just go, you called it a money trap, and I like that. And my metaphor for it is more like a pedestal. I had built a life up to I was on like this pedestal effectively. Everything was great, but it was built on a pedestal, which meant I had no direction to go, kind of thing. Everything looked downwards, if you see what I mean.
Hmm.
So I built a life around my wage. My wage was dependent on this job. I couldn't go get another job. I mean, I could have maybe got another job in the same industry, but it would have meant proving myself to that company. I'd been with the company I was with. I was with them for 15 years by the time I left. So moving to another company didn't seem like a sensible option. Changing careers, in my 30s at the time, didn't seem like a good idea because it means starting at the bottom again. I couldn't financially afford to start at the bottom because I had basically every time I got a pay rise, I just spent a little bit more. Um, and when I say spent a little bit more, it was more actually I borrowed a bit more. The house we bought was to our limit and a little bit extra in the hope that it doesn't matter because in a few years' time I'll have another bit of a pay rise, another bit of a pay rise. And as time goes on, you pay a bit more of your mortgage off and things will get easier. That's the kind of theory behind it. But it wasn't the reality. And also, it meant, well, during that time, why spend the next 20, 30 years with this mortgage of being, whether you can afford it or not, it just felt constrained. I've got no choice. I've got no options. Whether I like doing this thing or not is kind of almost not the point. What I don't like about it is that I can't change it. Even if I didn't want to, I don't have that choice to change it. And that's the thing that I hated. And because every element of change felt like starting from the bottom
Yeah.
or going backwards, which is why, as you're aware, the space that we both entered into this to start the entrepreneurial journey was so appealing because it was kind of that do it alongside your current life, and yes, you can do it, and it is possible, and people do it all the time, and I did for a period of time. Um, but you can also, and like you said, it is a massive personal development journey. And I think once you go through that, you do find that level of bravery of going, I need to make things difficult.
Yeah.
I need to make things a little bit more difficult because I know I'm capable of more, but I don't ever really go all guns blazing until my back's against the wall. So I need to do that, but it also you kind of get this level of bravery and confidence to do that, to go it doesn't matter because actually I've got this far in life and everything I've done it's turned out okay, even if it didn't feel like it at the time. It's been okay, so sod it. I've got to do it. you
That's
know
exactly what happens. And the way you just described it there, I mean, gosh, I've been so lucky because first of all, I had a hairdressing salon and I enjoyed that. But then I met the love of my life that I was with for 25 years and I relocated. Then I was in sales in the dental industry and I was in a job, various jobs, but I was in a job for 15 years and that was very entrepreneurial. It was commission only. So I was able to fulfill that side of my character. And there was no roof to the wage. So I could really express in that job. So I've been really lucky, really, really, really lucky in my career. And then I gave up that job to set up the business that I've got now. And it felt like at the time I fell flat on my frigging face. And I ended up back in another job that wasn't entrepreneurial and more like a square box. I enjoyed that for a while. But when you were explaining it, so I've been really lucky. I've not been that person that's going to work every week and I just don't want to be at work. And it's not fulfilling who I am. I've only had a little taste of that, and it's been at the end of a job, and it's been time to move on. But when you explain what you've just explained, it's kind of nuts and crazy. You work all year to get a 2 year holiday vacation, whereas my life now, I don't feel the need to go on holiday because I am enjoying my experience. It's kind of back to front and different. And what I found is if I let my mind get involved, my mind thinks, oh, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to have this much money in the bank. But if I actually follow my heart, which is what this podcast is all about, I've always got everything I need in every moment, every day. And all the people around me who live in this way have as well.
I think that I wanted to emphasize on that as well, and I forgot on the follow the heart thing. And I think that's the overall message here is what we've both done. Mine was I hated my job. Again, I still don't know how real that was, if you know what I mean, because it wasn't that bad. It
Yeah.
was, it was a lot of it I created myself, the hatred and the discomfort and the stuff I didn't like and the constant complaining. Oh, I created myself. And I think that was because there was a part in me that was telling me you've got to follow your heart, but you're not willing to do it until it gets really uncomfortable. And I think I created a huge amount of discomfort. I created my depression. I created my darkest moments because I had to, because there was, and whether it's my heart or whatever it is that this element that's inside me did it because it was gone. You've got to, it's got to get this bad because you're not following your heart.
Yeah.
Um, and you're not going to be happy if you remain here for the next 10, 20, 30 years. Yes, it's going to be okay. It's actually probably going to be quite great if you learn to kind of surrender to it and accept it for what it is. But you're too goddamn stubborn. You're not willing to surrender and accept it for what it is. You're not going to be happy until you let go of it and have the sort of blank canvas that's your own, to go and be creative and explore and do what you want, when you want, with who you want, where you want.
Yeah.
Um, there was this part in me that was just crying out, shouting loud, 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 just go do it. And I think that that was the part of me that made me suffer. That was telling me over and over again, saying, this job is awful. Your boss is a dickhead. These people you're working for are awful people. Blah, blah. None of it was really true,
Mm.
but I had to convince myself that it was so that I hated it enough,
Yeah.
um, so that I could follow my heart. And it could be, yeah, maybe it is. And as I'm, talking out loud now, maybe it is. It's our heart that does that. Sometimes our heart is cruel to. It has to be cruel to be kind. It encourages us to go down to dark places
Hmm.
for us to suffer, to go, look, you've got to make change. And if it needs to be that bad for you to actually go do something, then I'm going to make it that bad. Um,
That resonates. That resonates a lot. The only time I suffer is when I'm off track with my intuition, gut instinct, heart. And also, what I've noticed when I observe, if we don't do it for ourselves, it gets really bad. And if we still don't do it for ourselves and we're in that state, something always comes along energetically and does it for us. Always, like the get made redundant or the partner leaves and has an affair, whatever it is, something always comes along to push us in the end.
yeah. Well, I think I wanted to comment on the suffering. So one thing I've been taught. So I'm also, I don't know if I mentioned it. As I said about my brand growing, I'm also now a life coach. So I've been trained by Tony Robbins and Chloe Medanes, Robbins Medanes student.
Mhm.
And one of the things that like Tony Robbins talks about is with suffering, it only occurs at two times. One, when our expectations aren't met. We think something's going to turn out one way and it doesn't. So we suffer. But ultimately, the only other time we suffer is when we feel helpless to it. When we feel like I'm out of control of it. I have no choice.
Mm.
Um, I don't get to say in making this thing change. Um, and ultimately, they can be both easily resolved. Obviously, our perception of the outcome can change. We can change that. And in reality, we're always in control. We always do have that option to suffer or not. Um, that's a whole nother subject to explain it. And if anybody's listening, just going, what on earth is he on about? You can't choose not to suffer. You
No.
absolutely can. And I would highly recommend, easiest option for right now is to tell you to read Man's Search for Meaning. The ultimate outcome of that book is, he was in a prison of war camp and he chose not to suffer because no matter they just stripped him of absolutely everything, clothes, dignity, the lot, and his family, they couldn't, they couldn't remove his thoughts. And that was the one thing that you can never take from somebody is your own thoughts and your own mindset and your own outlook. They couldn't change that. They couldn't take that from him.
Would I took some notes there. First of all, expectations. I learned about expectations when I was in Mexico. When I went traveling, let go of expectations because we make assumptions and we are attached to things, and to learn non-attachment to outcomes. And then often outcomes are better than you thought they could be anyway. And then the second one about the helplessness, learning to take responsibility for yourself. And yeah, you're right, Man's Search for Meaning. I'm going to put in the comments, I'll put a I'll put a link to that book, I'll put a link to your hoodies, but also I'm going to put a link to the community we're in. Did you I'm going to explain what it is in a minute, but did you do the North Star process, Matt?
I started it. I had a lot going on at the time, and I've got them on my to-do list to finish. I know they've just started again, but I was hosting a group call when it started, so I'm not going to try going through it live again. But I've got the replays ready to. I got about halfway through,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's obviously I went through Brand Incubator, which was
Yeah.
kind of what it was based on, but this sounds a lot deeper
More
and
comprehensive. So to explain to anybody listening, the group that we're in, the entrepreneurial group, you can go down different routes of how you create your brand. But as part of deciding what route you're going to go down, there's this process called the North Star process. And I think it's a 5-week process. I did it and it digs really deep into your values, what you're about, your why, and you come out the other end with an understanding of yourself internally and then it gives you ways to live your days, little kind of tiny actions, and it helps you understand what you might want to bring out into the world. And the reason I love this community so much is it's not just an advertisement to, if you follow things my way and you can earn 6 figures in 2 years' time, one of the very first things they teach you is don't give up your job. Now, I actually listened to that video after I'd given up my job because that's just me. But the leader of the group actually says don't give up your job. I just missed that message when I joined. And
we only hear what we want to hear, don't we?
yeah. And then I remember being on the way to the airport listening to one of the trainings, and I was on the way to the airport after I'd just handed my company car back and listening to that video and going, oops, I've just given up my job. Anyway, anyway, um, they teach that take your time and work yourself out and work out your message, and you get so many tools to do that. And what I love also as well is there are people in that community you can relate to, because you might not find in your everyday life other people who understand your journey. In fact, what tends to happen is all of a sudden all your friends and family are against you when you go on this journey, and they're well-meaning because you're growing and you're changing, and they're well-meaning saying don't do this, don't do that, because they're afraid for you. They only know the version of you that they've experienced in their reality up until that moment. They don't know the version of you that you're becoming and aspiring for, so they tend to give you advice based on what they know from you from the past. And so within that group you end up with partners that you can account with, and there's just so much. It's really good.
I honestly wouldn't have stuck around in this space if it wasn't for the community, and not even like the whole community, but as you say, you create your own little
Yeah.
bubble, your own people that are either geographically local to you or just aligned with the things that you're aligned with, your values and things like that, or the kind of business model that you're wanting to try and create. You create your own little bubble, and if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't still be hanging around here.
Yeah.
Especially with the transition from the old system to the new system after COVID and stuff like that. No idea what was going on. It was kind of like, it was just kind of disappeared suddenly, and you're like, what's happening? What's going on?
That's when we connected last time, when the
Yeah,
whole company was being reformulated and it's turned again, it's the entrepreneur's journey. It's turned into something even better. It's a
so much.
rebirth. Yeah.
I mean, the tagline of this place is build something you love, and more now than ever, literally every day, every time, because I'm one of the coaches there, every time we have team meetings, the message is getting more and more focused on encouraging people to build something they love, build something of your own, find your passion and pursue that.
Yeah.
So much more so than the old world was a lot more focused on the affiliate path, on being an affiliate for the product,
Yeah.
which is nothing wrong with it, but it's very easy to let that go when it doesn't work because it's not yours. It's not deep ingrained into your veins. It's not an extension of you. If it doesn't work out or it gets challenging, it's easy to just bin it and start something else.
Yeah.
My brand isn't going anywhere. I've not been marketing for probably a good 12 to 18 months, not properly. I've got like an awareness ad that just runs on autopilot, very low cost, but um, I've not been marketing because my attention has turned towards coaching.
Yeah.
Something I learned about myself again on this journey is yes, I created this brand and I've got no regrets about it whatsoever. But what I've learned is what I actually was doing, which I needed to do. So I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but what I was doing is I was hiding behind the hoodie. I was
Yeah.
hiding behind the message.
Wow. Yeah.
Because it's easy to do that. It's easy to have some another external item being out there with the message, to not be interactive. And what I've learned that I was missing massively is the connection. Actually connecting with people, actually contributing directly one to ones with people.
Yeah.
Um, and that was a lot of work with one of the other mentors, Sabine. There, I worked alongside her, and I'm a coach for her program that's she's built outside of that. That's how I became a coach for her, for going through that her process and discovering, yeah, that's where my again back to your story, your point is following my heart. That is where my heart was. That's the element that I was missing is the coaching side, is the actual supporting people directly, and connection. So yeah, if you're not familiar with the six human needs, which is everything I've been taught about, one of them is connection,
Yeah.
and that is my highest human need, and I wasn't getting it for being a an owner of a clothing brand. There's almost zero connection apart from the occasional um, nice email that you get. And as we know, people are much more quicker to write emails of complaints than they are of gratitude. But I have had several really nice emails saying thank you very much. It's, absolutely what I need. It's, I wear it every day, things like that. And that just makes it all so worth it, even if it's just that one email that somebody's really gained. And it's just a hoodie. It's just a hoodie, but
Got a
it's,
message, like you described at the beginning, what your hoodie's about. It's got a message. And Sabine, just to explain, Sabine's one of the coaches in the space. I also went through her process and I ended up crying on one of her sessions in front of everybody. I
yeah,
guess it was so deep. It was just
me, me and
amazing.
Sabine cry a lot. I
Yeah.
make Sabine cry quite often.
I'm probably going to bring her onto this podcast, actually.
Do it, yes.
I'll put the link to the community in here as well. But there's always a question that I ask Matt, on this podcast as I started to draw it to a close. Well, there's two questions, and I'm always intrigued how people are going to answer. And so I'm going to ask you. The first question is, if you could go back to any point in your life from the wisdom that you have now, and you could speak to yourself, and you could say anything to yourself at any point, where would you go and what would you tell yourself?
I know exactly what Um, yeah, I know exactly. It it would be the point that I was back in Bristol during a day at work. Well, I was stood looking down at the portway, which is near the suspension bridge, and it would be just to let myself know that it is going to be okay. And I get emotional because I do see that person as a different person now.
Yeah.
I do see that person as somebody else that I've got a huge amount of like empathy for. Um, because it's not just me, if you see what I mean. That's not.
Yeah.
I know there's many other people like that right now, even now, right now in this moment. There's somebody in that situation right now.
Absolutely.
Um, so I would go there and go, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
That's beautiful. And the next question, I've got a feeling that you're going to answer. I've got a feeling of what you're going to answer. If you could give any message to our viewers from your own journey, impart some wisdom, anybody who's listening to this, what 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 would you say?
Ultimately, never give up. Um, and I know it sounds like I'm self-promoting, but start living for today. Today is all we've got. It's the only thing that's real. All our troubles, all our problems, all the things that we feel that we're suffering with are actually in the past, or there's something that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
That's all they are. They're not real in this moment because this is the only moment we will actually have. So stop, pause, take a couple of deep breaths, and remember, realize that right now, oh my God, I'm here. I'm here. I'm in this space. The thing that you're thinking, the thing that you're worried about, it's not happening right now. It can't be.
Yeah.
Um, read The Power of Now. That
Great.
was my Bible.
Mhm.
Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now, actually. That was my Bible um, for a very long time. That was the single book I've listened to, because I don't read books. I've listened to God knows how many times. Um, and that is the one thing, that one message that got me out of depression. The moment you realize that depression does not exist in the present moment, it's impossible for depression or anxiety to exist in the present moment. Once you get that, you sit there and go, oh my God, yeah, I've just spent 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds not being depressed. Well, if I can do it for that long, what if I just sit for a little bit longer? Spend a little bit longer not being depressed? How fucking awesome is that? It's really possible.
Yeah. I'll put the link to that in the comments as well. There's been a lot of gold dust in this podcast. I'm really grateful that you joined me, Matt. Thank you.
So thank you. And yeah, thank you very much for
Thanks.
giving me the space and listening to my story.
Thanks, Matt.